Hey, welcome back. Korea just posted its best export month ever, and it wasn't even close. According to the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, exports in March hit $86.1 billion, up 48.3% compared to the same month last year. That's the highest monthly export figure in Korean history. And the engine behind it? Semiconductors. Chip exports alone came in at $32.8 billion. That's 151.4% higher than March 2025, and the first time semiconductor exports have ever crossed the $30 billion mark in a single month. To put that in perspective, semiconductor export growth accounted for 70% of the total export increase that month. Memory chip prices have gone absolutely parabolic. 128 gigabyte NAND flash prices jumped from $2.51 to $17.73 in a year, and DDR4 memory surged 863%, according to ministry data. Now, one thing worth flagging for international listeners: Korea's chip boom is happening against the backdrop of the ongoing US-Iran conflict, which shut down the Strait of Hormuz and disrupted oil flows globally. Ironically, that actually helped some numbers here. Energy imports dropped 7% because crude oil and LNG simply couldn't get in. The trade surplus hit a record $25.7 billion for the month. But speaking of that conflict, markets got a major jolt when President Trump signaled that U.S. forces could leave Iran within 2 to 3 weeks. He said the nuclear objective had been achieved. Iran's moderate president echoed a willingness to end hostilities. Asian stocks responded immediately. The KOSPI jumped 8.44%, closing at 5,478, recovering all 4 days of war-related losses in a single session. Japan's Nikkei rose 5.24%. Taiwan's index climbed 4.58%. Now, on the real estate front, something significant is happening. Korea's Financial Services Commission announced that starting April 17th, mortgage loan renewals for multi-home owners, people who own more than one apartment in the Seoul metropolitan area and regulated zones, will no longer be permitted. The scale isn't small. About 12,000 units worth $2.7 trillion won face loan maturities this year alone. Extending to all years, it's 17,000 units worth $4.1 trillion won. A quick note for listeners unfamiliar with Korean housing culture. Multi-home ownership has been one of the primary investment strategies in Korea for decades. Property in Seoul is extremely expensive, and owning multiple units as rental income is common. This policy is specifically designed to pressure those owners to sell, with the government's stated goal of bringing household debt as a share of GDP down to 80% by 2030 from current levels. FSC Chairman Lee Eok-won framed the policy in stark terms, saying it's time for a decisive separation between the real estate market and the financial system. And finally, a breaking deal story. Uber is reportedly pursuing an acquisition of Kakao Mobility, Korea's dominant ride-hailing platform, for approximately 2.8 trillion won, roughly $2 billion. According to investment banking sources, Uber has already submitted a letter of commitment and is targeting a controlling stake of over 50%. Kakao Mobility's total valuation is pegged at around 5.5 trillion won. Uber entered the Korean market in 2021 through a joint venture, but struggled to dent Kakao's dominance. If this deal goes through, it would reshape Korea's mobility market, though a Korea Fair Trade Commission review could still block it. That's all for today's deep dive. We'll be back with more insights. You've been listening to the Korea Economy Brief, straight from the front page of Seoul Economic Daily. Thanks for tuning in.